Ooh. This is really professional.
We are, yeah, I know. And of course, now the cat decides to hop down. There we go. We're just so professional. Folks, welcome to Talking Crit Live. I am one of your hosts, Eric Tenkar, your bartender in the OSR. Next to me, stage right, I don't know, is none other than Bad Mike Battalato of North Texas RPG Con. And below us, only because he logged in third.
He's like Atlas. He's like Atlas.
He holds us up.
Yes.
There he goes.
Yes.
Is none other than the one, the only, Jim Kitchen.
Who will be showing off his extraordinary auction skills in 2 weeks at Gamehole Con, and
lurks right around the corner.
I'm all excited that Alex posted the list. There's some good goodies on there, and I've got a little box of goodies over here. Maybe I'll preview a couple more items I pulled just for people can see what we have. And so, yeah, that's going to be great. I have volunteered for the auction. Jim, I want you to know I actually ran the auction for 2 years, and I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if I've told you a story before, but I suggested you to Alex because I like auctioneering. I think I'm okay at it, but it was time for him to move up a notch. And I had seen your skills that year. I mean, I've seen your skills for years, and I just said, look, you need to call Jim Kitchen. Jim Kitchen really needs to get a call for you. So I don't want to say you're like Matt Finch. I don't want to say I made you. I didn't make you. You were already along the way, but I made you a little better. I got you a little more pub. You know, I mean, Matt Finch was when I met him was nothing. I mean, I pulled him up from the abyss.
Wow,
you were a bagel in the oven, but then he came along with the
you were already cooking. I just had I put some
everything.
schmear on it. Yeah, I put some schmear on it, and it was okay. So, but yes, I suggested you because I had done it. I think the 2 or 3 years before that. And I was just like, your auction's getting big enough now. You really need somebody that knows what they're doing and not an amateur. And so I think it's worked out great. You and Rick Mintz do the auction, do a great job, run through a lot of stuff. We usually have over 100 items, and
there are a lot of things.
Yeah,
yes.
But some good stuff, some really nice stuff. Looks like we've got I was looking at the list, white box. We've got a bunch of shrink wrap stuff. We got all the supplements. We got some early, it's just, the usual awesome stuff in the Great Game Hole auction. So that's going to be great in about 2 weeks. We will all meet in Madison, Wisconsin. It's going to be fun.
Well, when you say all but I
you need to get back to, really get back to Game Hole, man.
Game Hole is the one I listen, nothing personal against GaryCon. Aside from the fact that it's a 2-hour drive from any airport to get there, if you're not renting a car, your hands are in the hands of the Uber gods, which is not a fun one. Yeah. But no, Madison is a beautiful little city, and it's always been fun to go there. But scheduling wise, it isn't always the easiest, and it's not one I can drive to. I mean, when it comes to flying to a con, Rich and I will always be at North Texas, but otherwise most of my cons are within driving distance. I mean, Michael, your driving distance is like 2 days. I understand that. I mean, you can. My driving distance is about 6 hours in a day, so that's kind of where my limits are.
Well, and speaking of that too, you just got back from a small con. We're going to talk about ShireCon tonight. Yep. Eric was there. That's turning into really, I guess, the 7th year. That's turning into really, really fun, really interesting small con. The kind we like and we talk about a lot. And then we're also going to talk about James Carpio, who you saw at ShireCon.
And I saw him literally a half dozen times. Never got a chance to talk to him because he was always talking with other people. You don't want to it's like, all right, people want to talk to James. I appreciate that. I don't want to be the ass. Excuse me, I need to. So it's like, you gave a nod and you kept it moving. But I don't know. What shall we touch on first, James or Shire?
Well, ShireCon and James seems to be intertwined because, like I said, I saw him there, and he passed away just days later.
The day after, or 2 days after. I guess it was Friday, Saturday Con, and he passed away Monday. So and I still don't.
Wow.
I don't know the details. I'm not gonna make any conjectures or something.
Yeah, no Yeah, we can't. We don't want to
We're not going to
speculate.
speculate,
Yeah.
but it's a loss. Because listen, a little inside baseball, but when this whole new TSR fiasco started brewing with new when the TSR trademark was yoked, the first person I reached out to is James Carpio. I was like, James, you gotta let your partners know what's going on. He's like, what? And I showed him and I told him. So they didn't realize initially. I just happened to step into it. So, but James, it's funny because, I wrote Swords and Wizardry Light. I've only played it as a player once, and that's because James invited Rachel and I out to Connecticut to a game store where he was going to run it, so he could run my Swords and Wizardry Light with me as a player, which was a lot of fun. And he ran Rats in the Wall from Jeff Talanian, which I thought was really cool. So that was, my God, that was years ago, way before COVID. And we went to lunch afterwards with him and his wife. Nice pizza joint. I'm not used to Connecticut pizza, but it was very good. Apparently, it is different from New York style pizza. So,
it was like New Haven style.
Yeah, which is the background. It was New Haven style. I don't know the idiosyncrasies of pizza. I probably should learn it. But he was, always a very generous and nice guy. So when this whole thing with StreamYard started breaking, with the prices increasing by more than double, and I was talking about using other services, he uses Streamlabs or used Streamlabs. And he offered to give me a tutorial. I just had no time before the con. I figured I'd reach out to him in October, and and that was him reaching out to me. I didn't ask for it. He just said, "Hey, listen, this is what I use. It's really good. It's easy to understand, and I'll give you a tutorial." And that's what our community is about, right? I mean, so James was always, from what I could see, always involved in the cons, always giving back to people, and always happy to talk with members of the community. And yes, he worked on the latest version of Top Secret, Gygax magazine. Had his hands in a lot of little pies. I believe his own publishing company too. So
I know he did the latest version of the Top Secret, and he worked with Alan Hammock and Merle Rasmussen on that, and of course Gygax magazine. The one thing that's interesting, I look back at whenever something like this happens, I look through my messages to say what's the last time I talked to this person, and I haven't talked to James in a few years, but we did converse on Facebook. And the thing that I hear everybody saying about him, this is really what I'd like to hear about me too, is that he was just a really nice guy. That's what everybody says. He was a super nice guy, not one bad word or anything, schmarmy or anything about him. It's just, he was just a nice guy. And everybody seems to say that. That's, you can't hope for a legacy better than that. Just everybody saying, this is a nice guy in gaming.
Which, makes ShireCon really weird. Because again, I saw him and I was like, I don't want to be that ass. It's like interrupting a conversation. So I never got a chance to talk with James this year, which I usually get a chance to talk to him at every con. So yeah, it's a real damn shame.
Well, and this stuff just haunts everybody, right? We know the nice people in the industry. I was talking, I made a comment on Mike Merle's post about Chris Christopherson, right? We lost, they always say these things come in threes. Well, this trifecta this week was terrible, right? We lost Pete Rose. We lost, I'll butcher his name if I try to say it. Mutombo. We lost Mutombo and we lost Christopherson.
Dikembe was awesome.
And what a just, today's the 7th anniversary of Tom Petty passing away, right? Like this stuff just sneaks up on you. And then when it's somebody that you like, it's somebody that you respected their work and the effort they made. You know, we all remember the hoops that everybody at Gygax magazine tried to jump through to prevent the closure of the magazine, and that just, you know, and that just kills you, right? It just bugs you. So.
And they really did such a good job on that magazine, and you know, we've gone over the reasons time and time again. No reason to rehash it here, but
right.
it died way before its time, because it was an attempt to, you know, just kind of be like Dragon was for a while. We're going to be a little bit of everything. We're going to have some adventures. We're going to have some articles. We're going to have some art, nice, great covers. Every cover, all 6 issues, incredible covers by, you know, Easley and Elmore and all. You know, it's just nice, just really good stuff. And so, yeah, it really sucks that Gygax magazine had such a, you know, ignoble ending there, but yeah, he did good work on that. And like I said, I never heard a bad word about the guy, and now that he's passed, I just hear a lot of really good words. So, you know, and I'm gonna tell you, I mean, I hope this doesn't sound morbid, but if I'm gonna go, I want to go a day after a con. That sounds like you know,
yeah, I know what you're saying.
I want to come home, sit down, say, boy, I had a great time at that con, and then just clunk. And just conk out, and that would be my preferred method of leaving this mortal coil. I think that, you know, that you just I mean, I'm sure he had a great time. He had a great time at the con, and what more can you ask than that? You know, for your you know, your last few days to have something wonderful like that happen.
Which when I saw him, he looked healthy. I mean, not that I interrupted him, but he looked good. So I just don't know. That's a damn shame. So Mike was hitting me with a link in a private chat, which I put up on the screen, and it takes you to a Facebook page, and it lists everything that's going to be on auction at Game Hall.
Yeah, everything that Alex has so far. My stuff is not listed. My fault. I need to send my list into.
I'm gonna show. I think top.
Yeah, there's some nice stuff. It looks like some really, really nice stuff there, as usual. It's Jim's probably salivating right now, chomping at the bit, thinking, "Oh, I can't wait to get this one and this one and this one." So that's going to be fun. Maybe later on tonight we can ask Jim some questions about that, because I have a couple of questions I'd actually like to ask about stuff. I don't know if this would be more of a Bill Meinhardt question or Jim Kitchen question. I'll just ask you now. So it says a Greyhawk 12th printing signed by Gary. How does that authenticate, and who authenticates something like that? Jim?
Maybe I should. You know, I still can't find the post, right? So I'm hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I don't know where the post is. I haven't seen the post. I've heard bits and pieces, so that's fine. So let me say a couple things. A lot of times we have people that are bringing things to the auction, and what you see are descriptions. If it's something from Alex's collection, I would absolutely say that that's an accurate description. If it's from outside of Alex's hands or your hands or some other people, what I would say is wait for Bill and I to have a look at it. You know, Bill will grade it. Mm-hmm. Bill will absolutely clarify what it is. And then it just sort of goes from there. So I don't know. Okay. So there's a link.
Yeah. But like, let's say you're auctioning it. So it's signed by Gary. It looks like Gary. When you're auctioning, you say, okay, here's the supplement one. Do you say signed by Gary Gygax, or does it appear to be signed by Gary Gygax?
Well,
how do you actually state that?
You know, that's the question, right? Then you have to get into the provenance of what has somebody said, and were they there? Was it signed? Gary has a fairly distinctive autograph. I think anybody who has seen Gary's autograph knows that Gary has a well-honed autograph that he has been. I still don't see the post. That's weird. I followed the link.
Yeah, I linked you there. Yeah, I was able to follow the link, but Eric went ahead and posted.
I put it in
the chat. It's in the chat.
It's in a private chat, which should be on the bottom left of.
My God, I might be banned from RPG Marketplace.
Hopefully
which would be
not.
really funny because I don't think I've ever been a member of RPG Marketplace.
Well,
so.
it's actually the RPG Marketplace community, which is the discussion page. I linked you there, but if you're not going there, maybe my link may be bad. I don't know. But Eric did post a list in the chat, so it's there.
Yes.
And there's about 89.
Here's what it comes down to, right? You could say you can say, see, I don't see it, so that's really strange. So if you're in the group, invite me. That would be interesting. So
okay.
So one of the things that you really have to sort of put aside is, are you willing to take somebody's word about it being an authentic Gary Gygax autograph? I think most of us could look at it and say, yes, that's Gary.
Mm-hmm.
If the person selling the book says, I was at Gen Con in 2000 and I got him to sign it and it says Gary Gygax Gen Con 2000, I think that's very reliable. I think you have to take these things with a grain of salt. We've had 17 years of people having plenty of opportunity to make vast sums of money from making fake Gary Gygax autographs, but frankly, the money's not there, really and truly.
Yeah.
Troll Lord published several editions of Gary's books where he signed what seems to be just about every single one of them. I would probably, without having seen it, I would probably say the odds are it's Gary's signature, and I wouldn't worry about it. But if you really want some provenance, I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to get. I have one item in everything I own that came with a notarized provenance. Did it really need it? No. Is it overkill? Yes. Mm-hmm. If you look at Paul Stormberg, if you look at Frank Menser, when they've sold things out of their collections or they've sold things for other people, sometimes they'll include a certificate that says, where it came from, whose collection it was from, and so on and so forth. I know a lot of people that save those. I know a lot of people that just pitch them. Anyway.
Yeah, I've got a certificate. This is something that was donated to the con, actually. Certificate of authenticity. It's one of the Stormberg auctions, but you can't really see it. There's Gary's simulated. It's not his actual signature. Everything's backwards. Great. But yeah. So if you don't have a certificate, like you said, the money's not really in there. I mean, look, if you're going to fake stuff, you're going to go fake Stan Lee's autograph on a Fantastic Four #1 or something. You're not going to. Yeah, the money isn't in the gaming to be able, to do stuff like fake, Alan Hammock's signature. It just doesn't. One time I was on eBay and a guy asked me if the maps I was selling, and I've got just stacks and stacks of Judges Guild maps here, and he asked me, "Are those original or copies?" I'm like, "Dude, let me explain something to you.
Nobody is making a vast fortune." Counterfeiting Judges Guild maps.
There's no money in counterfeiting Judges Guild maps. I'm just going to tell you right now, that is a money loser. So I said, no, these are all, because they just look like they're in such great shape. I was like, well, they're brand new. Nobody used them, but let me just tell you, there's no money in it. There would be.
That's right. They printed so much of this stuff. So I was not a member of the group. It's a private group on Facebook. You have to apply. You have to ask to join.
I just invited you. Yeah, I invited you.
So I've done that. So I'm very excited to see everything that we've got. I know some of the things. I've seen some pictures of some things, but I never got the final list. I'm actually texting Alex now. Can I get the list? I am not in that group.
By the way, I have a funny Alex story today too. When we get a chance.
Oh, hit me! I'd love to hear it.
Well, Alex posted today, and I had talked to him earlier this week. The company that makes badges for Gamehole Con is based in none other than Asheville, North Carolina. And he told me at the time they had not answered their phone in 3 days.
Yeah,
and he has had to make He has made alternate accommodations, but I can only imagine somebody that runs a con much smaller than Gamehole Con. We're talking, 5,000, 6,000 people. I'm doing 500. I can only imagine if 2 weeks before the con, I was told there's no badges. or the badges are underwater somewhere in North Carolina.
Right.
So as Alex, amazing as he is, he said he has pulled together alternative accommodations there. So, thumbs up to him. But man, I can't imagine. The only thing that had been worse about that disaster if it had happened, even closer to the con.
Right.
But apparently they were done and ready to ship. So they're probably they're just going to be
underwater, washed away in mud, something.
Yeah. So
well,
yes, he has averted disaster by getting alternative accommodations there. So
I my family had land in Western North Carolina, and I've been through Western South Carolina, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. This is just heartbreaking stuff, right? Just absolutely heartbreaking stuff. I understand the good sentiment of people who just want to hop in their 4x4s and go and try to extract people from the mud and so on and so forth. But this is now body recovery. Rescue is probably out of the question at this point, and that's not work for amateurs. They'll be getting dog teams in, they'll be getting search and rescue teams. If you want to help in something like this, there's a great organization called NASR, NASR, the North American Search and Rescue Organization. They have certificate and certification levels. You can volunteer. I would say to anybody who's in a reasonably good health and has resources, and if you want to be a part of something like this, now when you're thinking about it, that's great. You can make donations, but if you want to be more proactive than that, NASR is a great organization. They coordinate everything at a state level, at a national level. There's a Canadian equivalent as well. But NASR is a great organization if you want to be somebody helping. NASR can be activated if there's a lost child. Frequently, you'll see these stories about a kid who just wandered into the woods, went out the back door with their stuffed woobie and vanishes. NASR looks for people who want to form that line that goes through the woods and tries to find these kids and so on and so forth. So if you want to put on clothes and go out in the middle of winter to try to help a lost kid, or you're willing to hike and try to find some campers that are get lost, or you want to help in disaster recovery, NASR is a great group. You should look at volunteering or getting at least your first level of certification. So sorry, it's hard, right? It's really, really, really hard because the public wants to help and everybody wants to lean in. Eric, you're a former police officer, right? You want, if it's a crime scene, the only people that should be around are the police. And you can, the further from the crime scene, the less skilled the volunteers have to be. But there's a time and a place for the right people to do the right things.
Yeah.
And
actually,
it's just awful.
And it's strange because actually Joe DeLore and myself were talking a bit about this over at ShireCon because during 9/11, I was working down there as a cop. Joe basically snuck onto the site pretending to be a construction worker so he could participate in the recovery efforts. Wasn't trained, but he just figured a body's a body. And a lot of times a body is the body that's needed. But I don't recommend sneaking onto these sites. Go through an organization. It is really rough. I knew this was going to be a bad hurricane when I read that the NYPD and the FDNY were already sending teams down to Florida and Louisiana before it even hit. Yeah. And I was like, if they're sending teams down ahead of time, there's more, I think, that was known or suspected was going to happen than they actually initially talked about. But I am quite sure that many municipalities throughout the country are sending search and recovery teams.
Yes.
Rescue teams. I mean, that's
and I'm not trying to be morbid about this, but I would implore that if you want to do more than just send money, right? So after Katrina, my uncle and aunt signed up with the Red Cross and went down to volunteer and to help people. And that for them was something that they really, really enjoyed. But They were not asked to go and volunteer until there was enough of a stable platform that you could support that level of volunteers.
Right.
This is also, I have been a part of a couple of conversations in the last few days. By no means do I believe that I would ever fall into the prepper category. However, when you are a certain age and you have lived somewhere where electricity can be a little spotty or whatnot, one of the things you sort of notice is like, hey, I really like electricity, and hey, I really hate having to empty my freezer into igloo containers and pray that everything doesn't spoil. And so one of the things that this has brought up is, potable water and what do you do and so on and so forth. And so I think I've said before on the show, I have a son at university. He's a anthropology major. And so he was out at a dig site this summer. And one of the things that I got him for Christmas, sort of late Christmas present, early birthday present, was a solar setup with a battery.
Right.
And so, he was the only kid out in the middle of nowhere who could charge the cameras, who could charge the measuring devices and the whole 9 yards. And, he'd set up the solar panels, it fed into the battery, and then he was able to keep all this equipment going. If you live somewhere where power can be spotty, let's talk about North Carolina for a second. If you've ever been to North Carolina and South Carolina, there's a ton of trees everywhere. And it's only going to take a really bad storm to knock them down. 26 years ago, North Carolina went through a terrible hurricane that knocked out power around Raleigh-Durham for months. They were trying to clear trees and restring the lines and so on and so forth. And so a lot of people have generators, and a lot of people have natural gas generators.
Right.
And so I think you can live in a part of the country and go, well, we don't have hurricane issues. Well, sure. But you also have tornadoes. You also have bad winter storms.
Blizzards, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like so, really and truly. Yeah.
I have a small DeWalt generator. It's only good for a few days. It's always charged up. But you know what? I can charge my phones on it. I can play. We can play stuff off of it. It works. I've run fans off of it. I've run, small electronics off it. Look, it costs less than $100. Go buy one. Just keep it charged up. When electricity goes out for 2 or 3 days, plug in because that's what I hear is the most problem is people can't charge their phones. They don't even think about that. Like,
so I fixed my son up, I think at a pretty reasonable price. 2 solar panels that fed into the brand name was Jackery. He has a Jackery 500 and the solar panels to feed it. And he was the only kid who could keep all the electronic equipment running.
Nice.
Right. And you don't realize it. I mean, I was one of the people who my phone borked on Monday when Verizon, AT&T, and everybody else went down.
Right.
And you don't realize how much you use a cell phone until you can't use a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was laughing. I was talking to my stepmom yesterday, and I said, like, it was tempting to just go get I have a rotary phone. It was my grandparents. They got it when they got married in 1934, and it was the only phone the house ever had. And when we were cleaning out my grandmother's house, I snagged it. And so, I have this Bakelite monstrosity that's equipped with a modular jack that all I have to do is plug it in and I could use it. But boy, Monday was a real interesting little taste of what North Carolina is going through, and South Carolina, and Georgia, parts of Georgia, and so on. So if you're watching this and you're like, well, it could never happen to me. Okay, great. But, it could.
Right.
In some way, shape, or form. And
the exception that proves the rule. I mean,
yes. And I'm not saying you need to go mortgage your house or spend $20,000 on dry food and rice and a generator. And that's not my point at all. No. My point is that everybody has an internal chronometer about what they're comfortable with. Everybody has what do I need, right? And so if you have a freezer, if you have a meat freezer, if you have a deep freeze or whatever, and you've got a side of beef, a half a cow in there, you probably want to have something to keep that cold, keep it running if you lose power for a day or two. And the closer you are to things like hurricanes, the more you may want to think about this. You know, I've lost power where we live now. I've lost power. I would say that during bad storms, we tend to lose power 3 or 4 times in a 24-hour period. Usually it'll flicker, then it'll flicker,
Right.
then it'll flicker, and it's out for anywhere from 3 to 6 to, I think the longest ever was 12 hours. But the notion that it's going to knock out cell towers and you're going to lose cell service and so on and so forth. If you have an iPhone, there's now a satellite function. So if you
That's
cannot
right.
get a signal
Got
any
lights,
other way,
too.
you can. Yep.
That's
And that's another great one, right? Talk about light sources. I used to do caving, and one of the first things they say is you need 3 independent sources of light. And if you don't have that, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah.
Because you got to have backups, right? I mean,
That's right.
you always
That's
need
right.
at least one backup, but you know what? You need a backup for the backup
I mean,
because you do not want to get caught down there.
no.
Jim could probably tell you without light because it is pitch freaking black down there. It is like you can't see a thing.
I have a good friend. I had a good friend who passed away, who was on the National Cave Rescue Team. And boy, you talk about some people with some rarefied skills. They're looking for people with climbing experience. He was an anesthesiologist. And when he volunteered for the National Cave Rescue Team, holy crap, were they excited. Because you don't get a lot of anesthesiologists who volunteer for the National Cave Rescue Team. But all of his gear was honed to just what he needed, but plenty of light sources. And yes, when you are 3/4 of a mile underground in Lechagia trying to get to somebody to fix the compound broken leg they have, you don't want to be worrying about your batteries. Now we've come so far in 30 years from where we were with batteries, or 35 years ago. But again, like, it's like jumper cables. You know, as soon as I got my driver's license, the first thing my dad was like, okay, you have your driver's license, right? So you're going to put a pair of jumper cables in with the spare tire. You're also going to put in a pair of work gloves with the spare tire so that if you go to change the tire, your sweaty hands won't slip off, or you'll at least have a pair of gloves for winter. Thank you, Dad. 3 railroad flares, or three flares to put on the road so people don't run you over while you're changing your tire. All this kind of stuff. Just put some foresight into it. Put some thought into it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I live in New York City, and I have, as an adult, made it through one blackout, which, depending on where you are in the city, lasted either for a day or 3 days. I went through, a blizzard where my street did not get plowed for 3 days.
Ooh.
Okay. And Hurricane Sandy, where parts of the city, like the Rockaways, were without power for longer than a month. Rockaways, Coney Island.
Jeez.
I was out there. So now, I'm where I am. I'm on high ground. I'm away from the water. All that stuff. Like I said, in the wintertime, we weren't plowed for 3 days. Thank God I was on vacation that week. But when I finally had to go to work, I had to dig out half a block of snow. It's other people already digging out just so I could get my car out so I could get to work.
Right.
So what I have done in my household, it's extended family, me and my wife, my parents. You have 3 days a gallon of water per person for 3 days. So we have 12 gallons of water in the basement, just in case. We have whatever the brand is, like the Wise freeze dried food that lasts 25 years. We have a week's worth of that. And the idea that if you lose power and you lose your perishable foods, you have foods to keep you. We have a portable generator, like Mike was showing, that maybe would keep your refrigerator going off and on if you plugged in and plugged out for the better part of the day. But I've seen, as a cop, working in those neighborhoods when they were flooded out, what the effect is. And when you're going, some people were living in housing projects 22 stories tall, and you're walking up to the 22nd story to do, basically wellness checks. and to make sure people are okay. Now, thankfully, they had no power, they had water, and it wasn't extremely cold. But I mean, you got to be prepared for, I always say, for the holiday weekend. If some crap happens on a Friday, have at least enough resources to keep you through to Monday, because that's, if you never need it, that's great.
But you know what you do need? You need active gaming with strangers, like a
You
small
do.
convention named ShireCon. Maybe we should talk about ShireCon.
Oh, you
before
want to
people
light,
think it
you want to
turned
light
into
up the
prepping
mood. Yeah,
channel.
let's lighten up the mood. That's a good idea. So yes, there's seventh. This is the seventh ShireCon, Eric, and I had planned on attending. It just didn't work out this year. I really plan on going next year. Talk to us about ShireCon. Let us know.
Well,
what are we looking
the venue was a new venue. It was a VFW in, I guess, North Canaan or Canaan, Connecticut. And I got to say, it is not a VFW like I've ever experienced a VFW before, because this is a VFW that opened itself to the public. So you don't have to be a veteran to go there, to go to the bar there, to get food there, to enjoy the live music. They had live music on Saturday. So it has its own community, which is probably why it was thriving. I think Tom estimated he's going to have about 150 attendees at ShireCon this year. My only suggestion is next year it will be the same facilities. They need a sound barrier down the middle of that main room, and a section at least 2 feet wide for people to walk through from one side to the other. That has to be cleared of tables and or chairs, because gamers like to take up as much space as they can. But the fact that you had 2 bars on the location, the main bar and the satellite bar upstairs, meant
2
that.
bars.
Oh yeah, and hey, Mike, $4 bottles.
Okay, it's not bad for a bar. Yeah, for a bar.
Yeah, for a bar, that's very good pricing. You could get a 6-ounce cheeseburger for, I think, $7, made to order, so it wasn't dry. So the food was actually good pub food, kind of, at reasonable prices. And we were literally 4 minutes away at our bed and breakfast.
Nice.
So we were at the Locust Tree. Breakfast was included because it's a bed and breakfast. So you got your choice. He was like, "What do you want? Pancakes, waffles, eggs, bacon, toast." It was a nice day. The con was very nice. The atmosphere of ShireCon is like North Texas in a lot of ways. It's always a lot of people renewing their friendships. Although we had a lot of new people coming this year, I think maybe because the venue promised food and adult beverages on site, which was always good. Can't complain about that. And the gaming was good. I ran a game on Friday. I ran Swords and Wizard Light / Blades and Arcana, and experimented with a new rule feature, which I think played out pretty well. And then Saturday I played in Ian's Shadow Dark and Bob Goodenoug's Paranoia game, and Bob gives away tchotchkes. So I've got a red troubleshooter shirt, 2 actually, because I was number 1 troubleshooter and team leader, so I had 2 shirts to go home with. So it was a lot. It's just a lot of fun. Again, meeting a lot of people, and I'm kicking myself literally for not talking with James Carpio when not that I had the opportunity. I would have had to have interrupted somebody, but I'm kicking myself because I was just like, all right, I'll see him at TotalCon.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
So I was not there, but I did see a great picture from ShireCon, and I wanted to talk to this. This is as good a time as any. So Jeffrey Talanian posted a wonderful picture of he and his daughter on, I think it was Saturday morning.
Yeah, his daughter Sky,
and I don't think I've ever met her. I don't think he's brought her to a show that I've been at or whatnot. But what I was going to say is, we beat a lot of drums on this show. We talk about stupid WotC things. We talk about how we all hate grifters and people who do terrible things and take your money and run. We talk about great people in the hobby. We talk about great conventions. We talk about all this stuff. But one of the things that we haven't really sort of beat this drum or tooted this horn is get your kids involved, right?
Yeah.
More than anything else, like the only way there are more people coming into the hobby is if you make an effort to recruit more people into the hobby, right? Like I'm not telling you to be a Jehovah's Witness and go around to door and say, have you heard about Dungeons and Dragons?
but that right there will be better marketing than WotC has done the last 2 years, Jim.
No lies detected. So, but what I would say is, we all have our hobbies, right? I have said before, I paint miniatures badly. I have been going through this past week and sorting and trying to categorize all my Games Workshop. Dear Lord, is it a lot of Games Workshop? And so really and truly, one of the things that came to mind is, I don't know if Sky, I don't know if Jeff's daughter is a big Hyperborea player or a big role player or whatnot, but at least he makes the effort to bring his daughter to tag along and be there. And my guess this is that even if she doesn't, it's still an open door that if she wanted to come back, right? My son ran D&D for his friends, and then after they all graduated high school and split up and went separate ways, but they have been muttering about getting an online game going. And that's a different paradigm than when we were kids, right? Because when we went to high school and then we went off to university, you may have found people at university, but you didn't still hang out with some of your high school friends and play. And that is now a very realistic possibility, right? That they may still have those 2 or 3 or 4 kids that they're electronically in touch with, despite the distances between them. But make an effort to, like, if you've got kids in the neighborhood that are of the right age and you get along with them, or they cut the grass for you, or they shovel your walk with snow or whatever, a D&D basic set is pretty inexpensive, and it's an easy Christmas gift, or hey, heard your birthday was coming up, I thought you might like this, or hey, I used to play this as a kid, I thought you might like it. But spread the hobby, right? More than anything else. And as we get closer to Christmas, we'll beat this drum a little more, but try to open up the hobby to younger people and get them interested.
So I was gonna say real quick, I talked to Jeff today for a little bit, and I asked him. I saw his daughter was there, and she said she had a good time. She played Gangbusters. She played.
Yay!
But I said, "What was her favorite game?" It was Neon Warlords: The Toxic Wasteland.
Oh, Neon Warlords
is real.
That was her favorite game, and I said that's awesome. And so he said that she loved that game, but she had a blast. And
that's
she
awesome.
Got to, just to hang out with her dad, hang out with her dad. She got to work the table. She got to play games. I mean, look, it's good to get the kids away from the Xbox and the PS3 or PS5.
Yes.
I'll show my age. PS5, and it's awesome.
Guy, because Jeff's taken her before. So a couple of years ago, at least 2 years ago, she played in one of my Course Which We Like games. Because I always have at least one seat at the table available because I'm always standing. So even if my game sells out, there's always one seat. And Jeff had asked, I'm like, of course. And she was fun to have at the table. So before ShireCon, actually a few days before, Jeff reached out to me and asked me if I had any, what was I running anything? Yes. Did I have seats available? I said, I think so. But even if not, there's always room. And then we found out that I was running a game at the same time he was running a game. Friday, I guess it was Friday at 5:00, and he was like, because Sky was going to be running the booth while he was working. I said, listen, we'll find a way to make it work. And actually, my table was right next to his booth, so I was like, I told Sky, listen, play in the game, and if anybody comes up, you do what you got to do, but you're right here and enjoy yourself. And she was great to have at the table.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yes. And there were a number. They had Noah Green was running a kids table. Mm-hmm. So it was great to see Noah and to see him running games for the younger generation of gamers. So it was ShireCon has a lot of gaming going on for a convention that only has 5 sessions, 2 on Friday, 3 on Saturday.
But if it's a good show, does it really need that? I mean, we are blessed with so many great shows around the country.
Yes.
Right now. And one of the things that is so interesting is you talk to people and the delusion of I'll make the 8:00 game and then I'll be in a game from 12 or 1:00 to 5 or 6 and then
aspirational gaming. Yes.
Gaming. And it's delusional because 8:00 games, I'm sorry, but no. I've just given up on 8:00 or God forbid Dawn Patrol. I'm never going to make the Dawn Patrol, and I'm sorry, Mike Carr. I love you dearly. You wrote my favorite module, but I ain't ever making it to Dawn Patrol. And really and truly, you can try to horn 3 or 4 games a day at a convention.
Oh yeah.
But you're going to leave more tired than you ever conceived of. And if you go to some shows, you'll come back with COVID or the flu or something else.
Yeah, because your immune system was down. My first North Texas,
yes.
I had Rach and I in 2 to 3 games a day, including Matt Finch back-to-back Saturday mornings at 8. Oh, Saturday and Sunday morning at 8
You're
a.m.
a sucker for punishment.
And by the time Saturday night came along, we were supposed to be in Dallas, the RPG, with Michael Curtis running it. And we get to the room, and there's Michael Curtis and LeBlanc and a few others. And Michael goes, I feel like shit. How do you all feel? And we're like, tell you the truth, I'm exhausted. So he goes, why don't you just move this down to the bar?
Oh,
sounds good to us. And then Sunday morning, we just slept in. We didn't wake up until like 9:30. And then Matt, like during a break, he's looking. I wandered the halls. He's like, I thought you were going to be in the game today. It's like, oh, dude, we're done, man. We can't.
Not gonna happen.
So now I'll say, when I was in my 20s, going to my one Gen Con, yes, we were jam packed full of gaming. I'm in my 50s now, closing on 60. I can't do that anymore.
Isn't that always kind of that's kind of a sucker bet for when you first started going to cons.
Yep.
Schedule an event every single session.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah, I'm going to do 3
I'll eat at the table.
Yeah, I'll do 2 on Thursday.
I'll get dinner on the go.
And 3 on Saturday, and then by the time Saturday night rolls around, you're like, oh, not going to.
I'd rather die in a fire.
Yeah, I can't do it. So I ran a game Friday, and I was going to play in a game on Saturday. But then Bob had seats at his paranoia table, and I know Bob's paranoia games are famous for Bob's run. He runs a great paranoia game, and Rachel's like, I really want to play paranoia.
I'm sorry, time out. I just don't believe there is such a thing as a great paranoia game. I'm sorry. Never, ever. I've heard this lie before, and I'm calling you out for it. That's just
Jim, now, let me say, my history of paranoia goes back to Paranoia First Edition.
Mine does too. Still not fun.
I never got my goddamn dice, wrote them a letter, and Ken Rolston wrote me back with dot matrix, apologizing for not including the dice. The computer jumped in and told me to turn myself in, because obviously the computer is perfect and would not forget dice.
Oh, you must be a commie. Yeah,
I know. But in the end, I never got my dice, but I still got a great letter.
Oh, how funny.
But I used to run it for my gaming group that summer, and I still have a box full of notes that they were passing back and forth. But it does not work as a campaign game because you wind up hating everybody.
Oh my God! It doesn't even work as a drinking game, right? It's like
Bob ran a great game, and he did.
Oh,
I'm gonna say, look, my experience with paranoia is, if you have a great game master, it's like a lot of things.
Yes.
Look, people say, look, it doesn't matter. Pizza and sex. it doesn't matter if they're good or bad. Just having pizza and sex, great. But I'm sorry. I like good pizza and I like good sex. So I don't think any pizza is good, any sex is good. Same thing without gaming. I like a good game, but if you have a good person or a good storyteller to run Paranoia, I think you could have a good game.
Yes.
Because I have heard people say that.
I mean,
a
first
great
of all,
game.
isn't it Kostikian? Isn't Kostikian the one who's responsible for Paranoia?
I think so. Yeah.
I think he had
Yes.
some,
Yeah.
he had a hand in there. Yeah.
Yes. And I get that there is a certain segment of people our age that genuinely love that game, and I'm happy for you that that game got created. But like at this point, it feels like like it is so far from our reality. Like really and truly, I just there's a lot of games, right? Like I never got that deep into Twilight 2000 because my God, right? You play games, you play role-playing games to tell great stories, tell great collaborative stories and triumph and have successes and at the absolute root of it, you want to kill the monsters and get the treasure. And my experience with Paranoia was there was a guy in our friends group that was really big into Paranoia. Like this game, I mean, it hit all the neuroreceptors in Bob's brain and he was all over Paranoia. And that's great, right? But Bob was also the guy that loved diplomacy. And those people are bent. There's something horribly wrong about the person that says, hey, I know what would be great for our group of friends. Let's play a game of diplomacy. Because we played a game of diplomacy, and after that game, nobody talked to each other for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
because it was the worst thing to introduce to a close group of friends. So like I'm already a little sketchy on the whole, like, the people who loved Paranoia that I knew were not people you trusted because their judgment on games was so bad. Mm-hmm. And the other is I just struggle with the endless clones and the buffoonery and really and truly, it reminds me of bad Three Stooges comedy. The first time you see some of the Three Stooges skits, they're really funny. But the 347th time you've seen it, I'm good. I'll tap out now, right?
Come on. Mo is going to hit Curly on the head with a hammer. I mean, come on, man.
Yes. And it's like, okay, I expect a clone from stage left. And I just got to the point where it was like, I would just Paranoia, I'm done, right? I'm done. Because truthfully, if you wanted to update Paranoia now, it wouldn't be what it was. It would be the communists have won and the computer, like you would have all these great tropes that you could pull into it. And that's never going to get published, or it will be published and it'll be a Kickstarter and it'll be a huge success. But anyway, I'm not playing Paranoia. I'm done. Rant off.
Okay. I'm gonna compare this to Call of Cthulhu, and I know that makes no sense, but give me some rope. Give me rope, and I will hang myself. So Call of Cthulhu is a big con game because it lends itself very well to one session type. It's 1942. You're in Russia. You're working on a project. There's something. It lends itself to time travel, to all kinds of stuff. The problem with Call of Cthulhu at a convention, and this has been my take on it, is it can also be an absolutely awful game at a convention, depending on the game master. And also there was a Call of Cthulhu, I guess a renaissance about 10, 15 years ago, where all these conventions were running Call of Cthulhu one-shots. The problem was they were running Call of Cthulhu as my job as a game master is to kill every one of you and drive you all insane. And Jim knows what I'm talking about, because this is the big thing.
I hate these people.
Yes, and so that was the
hate them.
Giggle. I'm going to kill all of you and drive you insane. That's not the point of every Call of Cthulhu games.
I'm going to put my swearing hat on. Hold on one second.
I thought you could pull the platypus out. Oh,
it might look like a Lego space hat, but it's my swearing hat for the show. So I freaking hate this, and I'll tell you why. Right? this is Jim Wardism writ large. I'm going to kill you and it's going to be magnificent. No, it's not. It wastes my time, and I truthfully wish I had never signed up for this game, and I'm going to 0-star you on the GM recommendations because you're so flipping lazy that you couldn't come up with a scenario other than I'm just going to keep throwing Ghibli monsters at you until you die. And that's not so I had something for later, and I'll
that's the kind of DM that loves to roll on the insanity table and just can't wait to roll because you.
And they giggle like nitwitted 8-year-olds.
So Jim, if you take that person, let's say that's the only type of Call of Cthulhu game they ever played in, they're going to think Call of Cthulhu is a stupid game and it's dumb. And why would I want to play Call of Cthulhu? Everybody just gets killed and goes crazy, and the GM's over there giggling and handling himself up under the table as he's excitedly destroying us. At GaryCon this year, there was a Mark Greenberg ran a Call of Cthulhu game. I sat in for a while, watch you guys. It looked like an absolute blast because it did look like he was. And look, did you all die and go insane? No. Now, so there were some casualties. There were some weird things that happened, but no, his job as a game master was just to present the scenario, and that's a good Call of Cthulhu game. But just imagine the poor guy that 15 years ago just heard about Call of Cthulhu. He goes to convention, he plays in 3 games, and every game they try to drive him insane or kill him. He's going to go away from that game thinking this game sucks. Call of Cthulhu is terrible.
Yes. So
I'm just saying.
No.
Maybe you had a good paranoia referee put together a decent plot line and game, and it wasn't just you're all going to kill each other. It's going to be lots of clones.
So I don't want to turn this into book chat, movie chat, but I've got 2 things that I had on my little card of notes for tonight's show. So for the month of October, I bought the reprint, the paperback collections of Basil Copper's books.
Ooh,
and so this is a 3-volume set of all of Basil Copper's great Gothic and horror fiction. And I'm spending the month of October rereading all this old Basil Copper stuff. So I'm very looking forward to that. But Copper wrote atmospheric, really, really like the kind of stuff that if you want to get in the mood to play Call of Cthulhu, this is what you read.
Right.
And so 2 of his novels were Necropolis and The House of the Wolf.
They're both great. Read both.
Both phenomenal, awesome. Right? Awesome. Both Arkham House books. Both are in print. You can find these. Please, please, please read these. But the other, which was, I thought that for the month of October, I should have a good movie recommendation. And so I live in the middle of Flatlandia. I live in the middle of nowhere, Illinois, right? We aren't near Chicago. All we have around us is corn and soy. That's it. I got soybeans or corn, and they're harvesting all right now, which is why my sinuses have been miserable for the last few days.
Oh boy.
But one of the great unspoken horror movies based on a Stephen King novella is Children of the Corn.
Oh yeah.
And this is a movie that plays like a really good Call of Cthulhu adventure. And I say that there's a couple of movies that come to mind like that, right? The second Mummy movie, until The Rock shows up at the end. But if you watch the second Mummy movie, it's more like a party of investigators getting dragged through a B-movie version of Mask of Nyarlathotep, right? It starts off in Egypt, then they go back to England, then they encounter cultists, they break up a sacrifice, blah, 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 blah. But Children of the Corn, this is a great scenario, right? You've got the couple that's in the car, they're driving along, they're in the middle of nowhere, it's just endless corn and soy, and very familiar. And then they come across this little town in the middle of nowhere, and there isn't an adult in sight. And it gets creepier and it gets creepier, but there are clues along the way, right? It turns out that the kids murdered all the parents. And they talk about the blue man, and they talk about all the rest of this. And then finally, as the couple pieces all the clues together, they figure out who the blue man was and what he was trying to do, and they manage to execute on his plan. And that's the kind of stuff that if you're so lazy, you have to come up with a way of killing off the entire party to get to get your chortling giggles on. You need to not be a DM. You need to not be a GM. You need to walk away from the table until you can come up with something better than that. So go read Basil Copper and go watch Children of the Corn and take notes, because this is the kind of stuff that we want. This is not the stuff, this is not the stuff you ignore, because if you ran a Children of the Corn scenario, and it doesn't have to be cornfields in Illinois or Iowa or whatnot, but if you ran something similar, right? Think about this. What would happen if it was a small little amusement park, like a 9 or 10 ride amusement park, and you come across it and it's just kids and no parents, and in the fun house, you come across the wrong room, and that's where they've snacked all the parents.
Okay, I've got to get to sleep tonight, so just stop right there.
All right.
But I will say that there was a period when Chaosium also leaned into this style of play, which I don't think helped at all. Now I would say they don't anymore. I would say they're back to where, hey, yeah, you're right. Let's have this be very atmospheric and creepy, and it's like a slow-moving horror story, not a. By the way, your characters aren't going to live through this. As GM, your job is to basically finish the characters off here. That's lazy, and so
terribly lazy.
So that's my comparison to Paranoia. I have heard of good Paranoia games, but the GM
I've not seen them.
Okay, I'm just saying. Imagine our imaginary friend who just played a bunch of Call of Cthulhu games where the GM is out there to kill him. He's going to think Call of Cthulhu sucks too.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, maybe I don't know. You need to find a guy that could run Paranoia. Now, I'm not saying it's for everybody's cup of tea. It is a comedy game. And comedy,
it should be run as a comedy game. Yes, it should not have like life or death stakes. It should be run as a comedy game. And what I think, the one thing that, so at Games Workshop, what we always used to try to teach Games Workshop retailers, what we always try to teach independent retailers, the mom and pop stores, the friendly local game stores, was that if you're going to do demo games, it doesn't matter how this happens, fudge the dice rolls, cheat, whatever. But the golden rule was let the Wookiee win, because more than anything else, nobody wants to buy a game that the first time they played it, they got their ass handed to them. And you would be surprised. I remember there was a guy at North Coast Role Playing in Eureka, California, named Barry Osser. And Barry was a nitwit about this. Well, no, they won't know the rules. They won't have an accurate idea of what the rules are. Barry, you just want people to get a sense of, you move, you shoot, you roll to hit, you roll to wound, you roll to save. That's it. Like, that's all it is. Like, they need to understand how the game works and let them win, right? You have nothing. Well, no, but if they win, they need to have earned that win. And I'm like, you just don't get it.
Just good time.
Nobody wants to play a game where you Gretchen mobbed their one space marine and laughed as he kicked him off the table. They're going to walk away and say, that Magic the Gathering game, I want to try that instead.
Right.
And Barry was like right over his head, completely over his head.
Well, there is probably the one and only classic, absolutely amazing adventure Paranoia is Yellow Clearance Black Box Blues by John Ford. Yeah, Eric knows what I'm talking about. It's the Master Yarlathotep of Paranoia. It is
really?
It is the greatest adventure, bar none. It won awards. It won the
didn't it win a Nebula?
It won a few awards. It's so good. It's one of those things that's so good, kind of like Master Yarlathotep. You play that, and you're like, I don't really want to play Call of Cthulhu anymore because everything's going to be lesser. Yeah. That's how Yellow Clearance Black Box Blues probably was, because I remember reading that and thinking, I don't really ever want to play Paranoia, but I want to play this adventure because it's so freaking awesome. But it was an anomaly. It was written by a great author, John Ford, and it was hilarious. It's actually one of the funniest adventures you'll ever read, and I think that's the kind of thing that Paranoia should aspire to. Now, as Jim said, though, unfortunately, often Paranoia is seen like everybody's going to die a lot. You're going to have clones. It's going to be so funny, and that's the problem. And if somebody just needs to read Yellow Clearance, Black Box Blues, and say, I want to do something like that, and I'm serious, you will not hate me. Go read this thing. It's amazing, amazing.
Now I want to
adventure.
take it out of my closet. Jeez.
Yeah, it's just one the, and I was looking at one the H.G. Wells Award for Best Role Playing Adventure of 1985, which I don't know what that says about what TSR was going through at the time, but it's really good. And I think that's the problem, is that it's so hard to write a really good paranoid adventure, because I don't hear other paranoid adventures talked about like this one. This is really the only one I ever hear really talked about. Like,
this is the only one I've ever heard people talk about.
That's pretty much.
Honestly, the better paranoia adventures were the earlier ones. As they went on, they got worse.
Yeah.
I mean, there were ones
because people use the tropes at the beginning. So a lot of the best tropes of paranoia are in Yellow Clearance, Black Box Blues. And then what happened was, instead of innovating, further editions of paranoia just said, we're going to just do the same thing and just change it up a little bit. It'd be like if every Call of Cthulhu adventure resembled Master Yarlathotep. Okay, you're going to go to 5 different countries and you're going to fight Shub Nagurath. Okay, you're going to go to 5 different countries and fight Call of Cthulhu. After a while, you're like, okay, it's the same thing over and over again. That's kind of how paranoia ended up turning into. It just got more and more ridiculous as the years went on, and they just kind of played off the same thing. But that's the Uber adventure. That's the ultimate one right there. And the problem is that instead of saying this is a great thing to aspire to, and I'm going to write something like it, after that everybody just said, I'm just going to write this adventure over and over again, just pull parts out and just throw it into my adventure. So now I don't want to say, I'm going to tell you right now, Call of Cthulhu is a better game system, a better game than Paranoia. Don't get me wrong. It's just that I think people, there's certain systems. Look, you could have fun playing D&D, even if the DM ain't that great, because D&D is just, it's a whole experience, and you have a party of adventures, and you're having fun with your friends. I think there's certain games that really lend itself. You have to have a really good DM or game master, and if you don't, you're really going to suffer playing that game, because you're not going to get the full experience out of the game. I'm trying to think of some other examples. I think Call of Cthulhu is definitely one of those examples. I think a game master matters a lot, because if they set the atmosphere and they have a really good plot line and they created some really good player characters for the players, or some NPCs for the players, I think that really sets the stage for an amazing convention game, amazing Call of Cthulhu adventure game. I'm trying to think of some other games that are like that, where you really require really. I tell you what, you know who's a really good game master, Eric, is Snyder, Tim Snyder, because I always heard about. Hello, Eric, did you freeze?
Eric froze.
Eric, he froze. It's not just me anymore. Everybody's
it's not
freezing.
Just you.
So Tim Snyder, I don't know where Eric is. Tim Snyder doesn't run a lot of games anymore. He had some eye issues. I think he lost one of his eyes a few years back, but he came to Nortex a few times. He used to run some of the best games ever, and people would just absolutely rave about Tim Snyder's gaming prowess. And that's the kind of guy. Oh,
there we go.
I was talking about Tim Snyder. What a great, incredible games he used to run. And that's the kind of guy that you want to play one of his games. He's such an incredible game master. Unfortunately, like I said, he had his eye issues where I think he lost one of his eyes. He doesn't travel to conventions anymore. But everybody used to absolutely rave about Tim's adventures.
Oh man, his Toon stuff was amazing.
And so there's those certain guys, and he would run. Did Tim run the Thundar the Barbarian game? Or am I thinking somebody else?
He did. I never got a chance to play in it,
but everybody that ran that game said it was awesome. So not only did he have the game, he had commercials during the game. Where they'd stop every 10 minutes. He'd play a commercial on his computer, and he'd hand out breakfast cereal to all the. He'd have the little boxes of breakfast cereal. I mean, just the whole setup was. I mean, he went the extra mile to make a really incredible game, and everybody I knew that played in this game loved it. John Lyle still talks about his Thundar the Barbarian game, because of course he got to play Thundar, so he was I'm sorry. Glenn got to play Thundar. Because Glenn is Thundar, and I can't remember who John played. He said, but I had to let Glenn play Thundar because, Glenn. with the big booming voice and the thing. But they had a blast. They still talk about that game. That's how good it was. So a game master can really bring a really good game master
and that
really makes it worthwhile. And I think
and that was Bob. Bob Goodenough. He gave us bags with the proper dice, and you have a computer die, which is D6. Found out after the game, these dice are weighted and randomly weighted. So apparently,
oh my God, that's great.
So I had as the number one red troubleshooter. I was the TV famous one, so I got to give an extra computer die to whoever I wanted whenever they were rolling. Give them a better chance to succeed, but a higher chance of the computer noticing. Well, of course, I'm giving everybody the extra die, and that computer, that 6, was always coming up. And he goes, "Oh, you must have had the die that was weighted like twice as much as the other dice." I was like,
"Wow, that's great!
Yeah,
that's great. Evil but great."
Yeah. So we got that. We had those little round chocolates, not M&Ms, but they were given to you with the little dice bag, and those were the happy pills. So if he saw you eating the happy pills, then you could get a bonus to your rolls, but you could also go, all right, well, you pass out. Why? You're eating too many happy pills. You're just too happy. It's like, oh, son of a bitch. So he had a lot of little quirks, and again, free T-shirts at the end, which I don't complain with, because by the way, little old me making sure I packed everything. I was like, I just washed my shirts. Okay. They're a little damp. Let me just leave them hanging in the room with the bag to dry overnight. And then in the morning, I packed the bag up with no more shirts. So if it wasn't for the... Rach had a buff shirt, thankfully. What she's using as a sleep shirt. And then, of course, I got my con shirt for being a guest. And then I got 2 shirts from Bob. So it's like I came with no shirts. I left with 3. Look at that. It all worked out okay. But,
that's too funny.
Bob runs a great game of Paranoia. But I'd love to see him running other games, too. Some people are just natural GMs. They project the confidence, and they know their material. I can't stress this enough. If you're going to run a game at a convention, know the material.
You should put at least 2 to 3 hours of prep into every hour of game time.
At least, and know the system.
Oh, and can I talk about the one thing I hate more than anything else?
More than Paranoia.
I hate it more than Paranoia. I mean, Paranoia is pretty low on my list of things I hate, but I have to say, really and truly, if you're going to run a game at a con and you waste an hour and a half of your 4-hour or 6-hour slot, wasting it on player character creation, I hate you and abhor you.
Yes. Look, I'm going to give you a suggestion. No, I've run a ton of convention games in my life. The way to go is pre-gens. Pre-gens are the way to go.
There is a famous person. There is a famous personality in gaming and so on and so forth who literally, I wasted an hour and a half in one of his games at GaryCon where he just threw out a bunch of the first edition D&D booklets and said, okay, everybody create your characters.
Was his name Rob Kuntz? Because that's what Rob Kuntz did at the first North Texas, and that's why I vowed to always have pre-gens, because that's what Rob Kuntz did. It took an hour to even get started because everybody's supposed to there. Should I have the druid, or should I have the paladin, or should I have the ranger? And oh my God, just start playing. Just my rule of thumb is within 15 minutes of sitting down at the table, you should be hip deep in the dungeon.
Which is why I run
chopping things up.
It's why I run Swords and Witchery Light, or a variation of Swords and Witchery Light.
Now we can't hear her.
You can't hear me now.
We can hear you.
Oh, shut up, Mike.
You can't hear me. Okay.
Oh, okay. What I was saying is I run with the very light rules. It's only 4 classes. I can get people to create characters in 10 to 15 minutes because they all know the rules anyway, and they're basic rules. Nobody's shopping for material. Choose a pack, and I'll tell you what's in each pack. Everybody choose one, all right? But they can bring their character back. So it's even, if they're repeating stuff with me, they'll have a new adventure and they can increase. But yes, I've seen it where you sit down at the table and it's an AD&D 2E game, and it's like, all right, everybody roll a 5th level characters. I went, roll a 5th level character? You're out of your mind. Even with 2E, that's going to take me at least an hour with the whole party, everybody arguing over classes.
I said to the person running this game afterwards, I was like, we literally wasted an hour and a half. And he's like, well, I don't have time to do pre-gens.
What?
And I will never be in this person's game ever again. Ever.
I don't have an hour of my life to do pre-gens, is what he's telling you.
Like,
was he the president? Did George Bush run this game in 2000? No. Okay, then they have an hour of their time in the past 2 months to do pre-gens. My God, Jim, you can pull pre-gens out of the back of any first edition module. What an idiot statement. That's an idiot statement.
I had nothing. And he smiled and was just, I didn't have time to make pre-gens.
I'm too important.
I'd rather sit and watch you guys F around for an hour. That's more fun to me as a GM. No, it's not fun for anybody. It's just
right. And ask me how many people were at the table.
Oh God, if you say 12, that's it. I'm gonna just.
It was between 10 and 12 people, all fighting over like 2 each of the first 4 D&D books, and it was misery. It was absolute misery.
I don't know if I have enough. I don't know if I have enough rum. I don't think I have enough rum in this bottle to kill my brain after hearing that. By the way, I want to do a shout out. So I talked about what a great game master Tim Schneider was. You know who does an absolutely incredible game is Kelsey Dion. I sat and watched her run a game last year at North Texas, and look. She's got it all. She not only can she write great and create a great game, but she is an amazing game master. I was absolutely enthralled, and I'm sitting to the side, just bravo. So, the way she handled people and the way she was able to work out rule things real quick. She did the 50% rule. Well, I call it 50% rule, but a lot of people call it's different. It's basically if you can't figure out something, just roll the dice.
That's right.
Okay. And she didn't do just 50%. She'd say, okay, you're right. Let's say a 1 in 6 chance that happens. You don't get bogged down in minutia. You don't start flipping through the game books. No, there you go. You just go, and that's I have the 50% rule in my games. If somebody wants to do something and I want to jump, I want to take a running jump across this 12-foot crevice. What are my chances? I'll tell you what chances are. Roll 6-sided die. 1, 2, 3, you make it. 4, 5, 6, you fall. Okay.
It needs to be. Every good game at its heart needs to be fast, fun, and furious. It needs to just keep moving. So
and we're talking con games here. Look, during your campaign game at home, God knows anything goes.
Oh yeah.
If you're doing a con game, you have 4 hours, sometimes maybe 5 or 6. The people need to have some fun while they're there. They can't be bogged down.
I mean, listen, I have one unofficial rule from running a con game. Unless a player takes an action that literally kills their PC. No, Alex, I didn't ask you anything. Holy crap. Unless they take an action that, is going to literally kill their PC, I don't want the dice killing them in that first half of the session. Because they're there to have a good time. They're at the convention. They should, and I've seen it. I've seen, you're playing a party of first level characters. They get killed in the I'm dead? Like, yeah, well, what do I do now? I don't know. Get breakfast? I mean, it's like, what?
Now, I did see a comment. I have to say, somebody said, I want to play Ookla the Mock. You guys know what Ookla is named after, don't you? Do you know what Ookla is named after?
Mike knows, apparently.
So it's UCLA. So Ookla the Mock is named after UCLA, and that's the phonetic pronunciation of UCLA is Ookla.
It's an inside joke with the
it's an inside joke with the creators of the show that literally they got UCLA as one of the 3 main characters. Ookla the Mock. You can't even make it up.
Nope,
It's just too good for
inside info. That's the kind of knowledge you get on the Talking Crit, folks. When you have Jim and Mike and Eric here, you get the inside scoop.
Yes, no matter how we turn it, folks, it just keeps coming up, loser. So I really, I've learned a lot of lessons about con games over the last decade, and I can tell you so many times I've had miserable times, I've had great times, but no pre-gens, and I'm out to kill you, and that Jim Wardian philosophy of, isn't it a lot of fun that I killed you? No, it's not a lot of fun, and I wasted 4 hours of a con slot, and I should find another game and never play in your game.
And look, if your name is not Jim Ward, look, Jim Ward could get away with it because it's kind of his reputation. If your name is not Jim Ward, don't do that. It was his shtick. Exactly.
That's right.
That was his shtick. He did it. It was fun to see Jim tear up your character sheet. You know what? It's not fun to have Joe Schmo tear up your character sheet, because I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are, but you're not Jim Ward, sir, and I don't want you to tear up.
You are not Jim Ward, sir.
I'll tell you another look. This is something else that I do. If you're running a con game, since we seem to be running towards con game do's and don'ts. So when I run my con game, I have pre-gens, and I also, so we start out, we're in town. I tell the players within 15 minutes you're going to be standing at the gates of Quascatan, because I usually run B1. You're going to be standing at the gates. You need to get everything you want done in town within 15 minutes. Otherwise, if you start dithering at the priest when you're buying healing potions or at the general store, or whatever, you're not going to get to go to the apothecary and maybe buy potions. No, you need to get moving in 15 minutes. And I do. I put them right at the entrance of the dungeon in 15 minutes. Whether or not they finish messing around, because
that's right.
Look, people come to play games. They're not there to do actuary tables.
The guy who wants to spend 20 minutes outfitting his character by spending every last copper piece. I'm like, buddy, if it's reasonable that you have it on you, I don't need an itemized list. You don't need to bring your spreadsheet. As long as you don't try to pull the horse shit that you have 37 flasks of oil, I'll spot you 5. Like, I'm good with this, right? But don't walk into my house, right? Like, I've prepared a dissertation on my character's backstory. It's annotated with footnotes.
You want to be in. I try to, and as soon as they walk into the halls of Quascatan, guess what happens, Jim? They are attacked, because let's get this show rolling. Right. I don't want to spend 2 hours doing investigative reporting on what's going on. No, you're going to get in there and you're going to start swinging swords. I'm
going to do a con game. I might do it at North Texas this year, right? And I might do a con game where I bring a box of random assorted Lego minifigs, the ones that come in the little sealed boxes, and I'm just going to throw them out. It's going to be a pile, and you pick one, and you have no idea what's in the package, and you get 10 minutes to come up with a plausible stat line for that minifigure, right? So, if you open up the minifig and you get Retro Space Girl, then you have to come up with a storyline about how Retro Space Girl fell through a time warp with her weird robot dog. You're armed with some kind of blaster, and you're in the dungeon as Retro Space Girl. And literally, I'll have more fun doing that than I will spending an hour and a half creating characters for my exquisite first edition D&D homage.
No, but that would be awesome. Like, listen, another thing that I do when I'm writing a short adventure, first off, know your time slot. Like Joe, thank God Joe did that little test with Matt's adventure, which he was going to run at the con. He goes, oh, what, 2 levels and 60 rooms doesn't work as a con adventure? No, it doesn't. Figure out your time and space and be prepared to, if the party is, I love it.
It's the robot dessert maker. You have to come up with a playable character of the robot that is armed with a whisk and a cup of foam, and that is your character.
I could do that. Give me
and that's like that would be a lot of interesting, like fun, but not this mindless bullshit of I was too busy to create.
I was too busy. But the other thing too is be prepared to move your party to the big bad evil guy, or move them forward in the dungeon if they're not going to get there in time, so they can have that climatic battle. And be prepared if they're moving too quickly to get some things, extra random encounters. Put 2 more rooms in there.
This happens all the time. Oh, I have to interrupt you. This happens all the time at Gen Con when you have these very strict 4-hour slots. I cannot tell you the amount of games I've heard friends play in where they're just about to get to the climatic battle. Oh, our slot's up, and they have to get up, and the next guys get sit down. That is DM, not preparation there. The DM should plan it so at about 15 minutes before the end of the session, they get the big bad. Do not, we didn't get to I cannot tell you how many people that's happened to. Yeah, we didn't get to fight the big bad because our 4 hours were up and there's people waiting for the table. We had to get up. No. You as a DM can massage things and change things up. And take out this room there, take out that hallway, and then boom, next thing you know, there's the big bad.
Right. It ruins the integrity of the adventure. I've actually heard a GM say that years ago. I couldn't do that. It would ruin the integrity of the adventure. This isn't your home campaign.
Is he Gary Gygax running a tournament for Gen Con? No, you're not ruining the integrity for anything. No. Look, I played the game at Gary Con, and the guy had the right idea. We played a slot, and it was actually a tournament game, and we had about 15 minutes left, and he said, okay, we're just going to do this. You guys run down the hallway to the last room. That's where the big bad is. So we got to fight the big bad. It was great because we were kicking in the doors and investigating the rooms. He said, we've got 15 minutes left. I tell you what, you guys just run down the hallway and kick open the door, and there's Big Bad. And that's because we were going to take our time searching the rooms. And he did us right. He did us good.
I want to run Tomb of Horrors at North Texas, and I'm going to bill it as Tomb of Horrors. And what it is it's going to be the party of characters having managed it. It's going to pick up after they've just killed Asarak. And now they're trying to get out of the Tomb of Horrors, and they've lost all their spells. They've got the loot, and they're trying to get out because all the Ghibli monsters are now coming because they figured out the boss has died. And so I want to run that, right? Like
I like it.
You beat the Tomb of Horrors, but now you have to get out of the Tomb of Horrors.
I like that. Well, here's another thing. Like Mike was actually touching on this. As a player, if you're in a convention game, remember what your goddamn goal is, okay? This isn't a campaign at your house where you're trying to loot every copper because it's worth experience points or you need it to. Stop that shit, all right? What's your goal? Are you trying to rescue prisoners, like in my game? Good. You go and you find the prisoners. You rescue the prisoners. That is a great, but you don't stop to look under every.
I will say, so the game I just talked about, half of us wanted to run down and fight the big bad. The other half were like, no, we have to search every room because you don't know what's behind the doors here. We're like, that's not our goal. We need to run down the hall. No, we need to let's open this door and see what's in there. And then finally the DM said, you got 15 minutes. You run down the hallway to fight the big bad. Just do it. And then they're like, but we didn't get to look in every single room and find all. No.
Listen, sir, I'm sorry you can't manage your OCD and you forgot your meds, but we're going to go kill the monster.
It's OCD. They had to search every room like they would do back home.
There we go. You open it up and you get the alien creature. Your character restriction is you can't actually speak to anybody of the other players because you don't know their language, but you are armed with the flower gun. Create your stats. Right? Like this would be I just come on. Like, do a better con game. Be better. Just be better.
Be better.
Right? How about this? Escape from Witch Mountain, the RPG. There's a van load of kids. That are off. They're being dragged away from somewhere, and you're all like cousins of Tony and Tia, and you have to figure your weird power out, and you have to work as a group to escape the evil Betty Davis. That was who the villain was in the first movie. Betty Davis. So have at it.
By the way, the adventure that Jim mentioned, Ed Nagy did write a really nice adventure called Escape from Dragonmount, and we sold it in North Texas. We'll probably have it this North Texas. We still have a stack of them left. But the point of that adventure is there was a dragon in his lair, and a party went in and killed it, but they never came back. They all died killing the dragon. A mage teleports you into and you end up, you're there in the treasure pile. And now you've got to gather as much treasure, find out what happened to the party that came before you, and get out of the dungeon. And so it was a very interesting concept like that. Basically, the dragon's already dead. The whole party's laying around you dead. You're in there. Now you've got to grab as much treasure as you can and then try to make your way out. And by the way, you'd make your way back in, so you don't know how to get out. You just have to, we'll try this way over here. And of course, there's still some of the dragon's minions are still alive. Some of them are wounded. The magic user only has half the evil magic user has half his spells, that kind of thing. So it was kind of the same. I thought it was a really interesting take on that you're the dragon lair. You're in the dragon lair working your way out instead of trying to work your way into the dragon lair. So
right. Great stuff. Well,
yes,
just give me something.
That is a good plot. I like that. I like the turn the dungeon on its head type of thing rather than the the fun, like, so I got a lot of my philosophy running con adventures by going to a lot of cons, but my greatest teacher of all was a man named Rob Kuntz, who showed me, and I love Rob dearly, but I showed me how not to do con adventures.
Everything Rob does, you should not do.
Because so first of all, his game he ran at the First North Texas, he handed out first edition rule books and said, roll up your characters. An hour and a half later, as everybody decides what they want to do.
I should say that my painful experience did not happen at the hands of Rob Kuntz.
So Rob is, I guess you would call him I don't know what the school of thought is. It's basically where the dice roll as they roll. I will not affect this. This is all the dice. So I don't know what you'd call that school of thought. So
I am but a vessel for the dice to speak through me.
If you walk for 2 hours without a random encounter, that's what the dice said. You get to walk through an empty dungeon for 2 hours and do nothing. And that was Rob's philosophy. And so they started wandering through the dungeon, and about an hour and a half to make their character, another 30, 40 minutes before they had any encounter at all, because Rob's rolling goes, you're just not getting random encounters or anything. And also, you're not running into the rooms I wrote. I wrote some really great rooms here. You're just missing them all. I mean, it's, I'm like, okay, but that is a school of gaming back in the 70s, which is why we don't do it anymore, because that's what they did back in the 70s, and nobody liked it.
So
God bless you, Rob.
I had a game at GaryCon. A good friend of mine came to GaryCon a few times with me. He's one of my best friends in the world, and we agreed that what we were going to try to do is we were going to try to play in all the various luminaries games, right? We wanted to be in a game with Frank Mincer, and we wanted to be in a game with Alan Hammock, and so on and so forth. And so we signed up for a game with somebody. And all of my more experienced friends were like, get out. Don't do that. It's going to be the worst experience you've had. We understand why the notion is there to sign up for that person's game, but don't do it. Meinhardt still to this day gives me a raft of shit about this every time he can, because he was like, don't do it. He's like, I understand, but don't do it. And we were like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. It was worse. It wasn't that bad. It was worse. And really, it's a case of, you move 10 feet, you have a random encounter. You move 10 feet, you have a random encounter. You move 10 feet, you have a random encounter. And at the same time, while he's trying to run us through, and it's a table with 8 or 9 people, it's too large a group, he's constantly being hounded for autographs and people taking pictures and people just like, oh, it's so great to see you, and blah, 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 blah. And it was just awful. It was awful. And at the end of the 4 hours, my friend Dustin looks at me and goes, damn it, Bill was right. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And that was it, right? Like
Right.
I got to say, okay, I've been in this person's game, but sweet Jesus, I'm never, ever. And you know what? I see people who are like, I can't wait to play in a game with this person, and this person's going to be amazing. And I'm just like, suckers. I'm not like,
I got to give one of the greatest lines of all time. I may say so myself. When the next year that Rob came, he ran an adventure where you were stuck inside of a god's mind, and everybody ended up sitting around for 4 hours trying to figure out how to get out of the mind, with Rob giving them no hints at all. And so after the convention, the guy went home and he wrote the convention a bad review on some site, probably Google Plus at the time, and he said, I'm so mad. I went there and I was promised a good game with Rob Kuntz, and this happened. And so I had to reply and said, no, you were promised
a game with Rob Kuntz. At no point did anybody ever say it would be a good one.
It was going to be a good game. You got exactly what you paid for. Game with Rob Kuntz. That is exactly how Rob ran his games back in the day and still runs them. So no. And you know what? He agreed with me after that. He said, you're right. I was not promised a good game.
My review was unfairly harsh, sir. You are correct. I was in an online game with a group of people where we were having such a miserable time. Such a miserable time. And this is a correction. I spoke about this on a prior episode, and somebody reminded me that we were not railroaded. We allowed ourselves to be railroaded out of an airlock and die because how awful a game we were having. And somebody in that group was like, you didn't say what really happened, which is we all wanted to die, and that's why we killed ourselves. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. Fair point. You are not lying. You are correct.
Half one, half the other. Yeah,
technicality.
But truthfully, 51% was we willingly let the entire party die just to end the game because of how frustrated we were. Right? Like, it'll be a 6-week game. Great. By week 3, we're throwing ourselves out an airlock. So, yes, con games. There's a way to do it and a way not to do it. Yeah. And if you're Rob Kuntz, we're sorry, Rob, but really,
look,
you are like the 10 commandments of what not to do.
Rob has started going to conventions again. He's going to be at ArnCon. If you get a chance to talk to Rob, talk to Rob. He has more stories. And the great thing about Rob is zero filters. He will tell you exactly what he thinks about everybody in the hobby. But my God, don't get into game with him.
We're trying to spare you, kid. We really are.
Yeah. But like I said, his knowledge of the game, he has great stories.
Okay. So,
all kinds of stuff.
But we've always talked about this story, but this is a classic story. However, the onus is on you as a player not to be that guy at the table, right? And when the party accurately, like, one of the great things about humanity is that, yes, we have amongst us 165 IQs, and they are smart people. But humanity as a whole, when you put a bunch of us together, we collectively average smarter. And so at a con game table, when you see frost giants down at the farm, and they are large, and they are angry, and they have not spotted the party.
Oh, no.
Do not be the player that says, hey, let's charge the frost giants. And when the rest of the party says, this is unwise, we don't want to do this, we're not going to go down there and fight the frost giants. Don't be the idiot who charges the frost giants, dies, gets pulped by the frost giants, and then the party shows up and loots your body.
Don't be that guy. You're speaking from experience, Jim.
I am speaking. This should be called the Edwin rule. This is the Edwin Stolnick rule of con gaming.
Oh, Edwin. Oh, poor Edwin.
And it was a Hyperborea game. It was a celebrity Hyperborea game, and Talanian handled it perfectly and said, rashness and foolhardiness get their just desserts. And he did. And he's like, well, is anybody going to resurrect me? We didn't have we couldn't. Well, what are you going to do? Well, there's nothing to do. You killed your character off, so you get to sit here for the next 3.5 hours.
Oh, dear God.
And he sulked, and he was angry, but buddy, you had choices. Please, if you're in a con game, don't be that guy.
It's not all about you. Yeah. And I've told this story before about the Tower of Gygax game I was in. So for those who don't know, Tower of Gygax ran at Gen Con many years. It was a 24-hour event. It went 24 hours. We were playing at 2 or 3 and 5 in the morning. And what you do is you got an hour at the table, and there was a room. It was this giant tower with all these different rooms. And you got there, and there was people waiting in line behind you. When your character died, somebody came and took another character and went in there. And all the rooms had a trick or a trap or a monster in there. And so they were meant to, engage you for an hour. But the whole point, let me tell you, the whole point of Tower of Gygax was to die. Because if you die, you got this kick-ass ribbon that said, I was killed in the Tower of Gygax. And then the next guy behind you could get to play. Because what you didn't want to do is you didn't want to make it all about you, Jim, and monopolize all that time and just try to no, you wanted to die and then get up and then somebody else fills in the space and you move to the back of the line. Maybe you get to go in again. So we're playing for a few hours and it's fun and we're all dying and getting ribbons. This one guy goes up and he goes, I'm not going to die in this. And we're like, okay. So we go into a room and I have a dwarf. And the first thing I do, there's 100 skeletons standing there. And of course, the whole point of the room is you're supposed to weave your way into the skeletons. That's not why I'm there, guys. I go to the first skeleton and whack it with an axe. Immediately 100 skeletons start fighting us. And we're all laughing. And this one guy is like you said, he's sulking in the corner. Why did you do that? Now they're going to kill us all. So he went, his character went and hid. His character went and hid. He did nothing the entire hour. We're all dying and we're getting up and somebody's filling our space. At the end of the hour, he said, I won. I didn't die during the whole hour.
You, sir, are the most special of snowflakes.
Everybody stared at him like he was the stupidest.
You know what? This is the kind of guy that when he
off the farm.
This is the kind of guy.
He got no ribbon. He got no ribbon. He got nothing. He just like, okay, yeah, you want. Yeah,
this is the kind of guy that when he goes to the strip club, he really thinks the strippers like him.
Oh,
I don't know what else to say.
Right?
I
think she really liked me.
I think she really likes me
for
who I am.
50, yeah.
For who I am.
Yes. Not for what
we had a connection. We had a connection.
We had a connection. Did you feel it? Because I felt it. We had a connection.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The stripper really does like you.
And so don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that ruins it for everybody else because you're an idiot. And of course it just made that one seat. Nobody could sit in his seat the whole time. And everybody else, I mean, we're all getting killed, getting up.
Oh, if I was running that game, this is DCC has a similar Jim Wampler came up with called the Hypercube of Mitt. And it's just it's a monstrous fun. People are going through it. But if somebody winds up in the game like that, I think as the game master, you need to send 150 skeletons right at that die. Like, that's it. Like, you have offended the skeletons more so than any other party members, and they have to kill you.
Because you're hiding and not fighting the whole time. I mean, the guy didn't roll a dice for an hour. How does that? Did he go home and tell his friends what he did? I was in Tower Gygax, guys, and my guy went and hid in a corner and I survived. But I didn't get anything for it. I didn't get a ribbon or a certificate or anything. I just it was a skull that I just didn't even die, and I didn't do anything.
Irritating Peckerhead 101. I'm glad you took the course, sir, and I'm glad you got an A, but no, just get out. So
if you play in con games, you'll run into that guy if you play in con games. But don't be that guy, folks. Don't be that guy. No, don't be that guy.
You got a lot of choices, and like this is the Star Trek episode where they talk in allegories, Darmok, whatever, and so on and so forth. And really, bad player etiquette at con games can best be summed up as Edwin against this frost giant. and like that's it. Like I might have to have a shirt made for Tulanian that just says Edwin against the frost giants. And on the back it would say rashness and foolhardiness, yet they're just desserts.
Is that what he actually said? That's awesome.
Oh God, yes. He dropped that line, and it's his line. I have begged Tulanian for years to make the damn t-shirt because I will be buyer number one and I will wear that at every con. Because and Tulanian, he's like, oh well, I'm not sure, and I'm just like, buddy, he did, and I actually wrote it down on my phone when he delivered it. and he just, I mean, it just rolled right out. He goes, rashness and foolhardiness get their just desserts. And then another Talanian, and one day we're going to collect a book of Talanianisms,
Ooh,
and it will be
nice.
marvelous.
Oh, the book of Jeff, yeah. Book of Jeff.
And another one he had regarding encumbrance, and I love this. There's a big difference between a ball of twine and a tent. And I'm like, okay, like that's pretty, like I'm willing to give you that, right? But Talanian's got these just absolutely, he's got these zingers.
He's another guy that runs a great game too. If you have a chance to play one of Jeff's games, definitely do it because and I think there's one thing in common with a lot of people that are really good at running games like Kelsey and Jeff is that they love the game. And if you have somebody that loves the game, they're going to run a really good game. And I think that is
don't run a game you hate. You'll never see Jim Kitchen runs Paranoia at any convention. It just will not happen. Ever.
Well, I'll tell you, I said in one of the North Texas, we had Sandy Peterson as our guest a few years. And so for those that don't know, Sandy Peterson really doesn't like to run Call of Cthulhu. I guess he ran it so much he got burned out. But we asked him if he could run Call of Cthulhu at our game. And he's like, I guess so. And I'm like, all right. So he ran it. So I'm sitting there at my booth and they're running a table for me. So I had a firsthand look at Sandy Peterson running a game. And I have rarely seen a game master as disinterested as Sandy was running a game of the game he created, Call of Cthulhu. Now, I will say the scenario was really good. And he ran the game, but he was not.
His heart was not there.
No, not at all. And by the way, for those of you, just to let you know, he doesn't roll dice. He uses a dice roller on his phone. Just to even make it even less interested, he just pushed the button.
Oh my God! That's awesome.
You could tell he had probably been burned out on. This is probably, 2014. So he probably was burned out of Call of Cthulhu about 1989, and probably didn't really need to run it again. And this is 40 years later. He's like, yeah,
I'm done.
I'll run it because people want me to run it, but I'm really not too excited about this. So
going through the motion.
Get out of here with that. Get out of here with that tentacle thing, kid. I got no time for that.
If you're excited, people that are interested and excited about the system and like to run games, they will run really good games. And that's who you need to find. And sometimes, like Jim said, his little tale about the old timer that ran the game, you almost need, you find people like Kelsey that haven't been running games for 40 years, or Jeff Talanian. I mean, you want to find these guys. That's why at North Texas.
Yeah, if your GM is like, yeah, kid, whatever, you're in the wrong game.
Oh my God, that could be about 3 people I know, Jim.
And I don't mean that in a mean way, right? But they've been doing this longer than you've been fogging a mirror. And you got to understand that.
You're not going to throw anything at them they haven't seen 100 times before. And you may think you're amusing, but you're not to them because they saw that.
I got an idea. Yeah. Sure you do.
I saw that in 1992, okay?
That's right.
It wasn't that great then.
Yeah, it was old then.
It wasn't clever when Koontz pulled it on me, and it's not clever now. Oh, sorry. Did I say that out loud?
I remember when little teenage Jim Kitchen tried that in 96, and it wasn't that great.
He was an asshole then, and he's an asshole now.
So yeah, sometimes if you go to a convention, it's great to play in the old Legends game because you want to say that Jim Ward killed you or this or that. But give the young bucks a try because they can put on a really good show. And like I said, they're still excited. They're not jaded. They're not burnt out. They haven't seen every scenario. They're going to put on a really fun game. And I'll tell you who else I saw who was a really good game master was Harley Stroh. And I wish we could still.
Harley Stroh is one of the best game masters living and drawing breath right now.
Absolutely. Wow. And I never saw a Harley Stroh game that I didn't just think was amazing. And he still had that love and twinkle in his eye. And because this is when DCC first started, he ran DCC funnel playtests at North Texas for the first time. That was the first time he ever ran a DC funnel playtest. And he was into it. And he ran the Savage. What was that called? Savage Kings. Savage Kings.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Everybody had a blast. He did a great job. They were pulling stuff. The people playing the game were veterans. They were pulling stuff out of their ass, and he was having to make up decisions right on the spot. And he just absolutely great game master. If you have a chance to play a Calistro game, definitely.
I was in a game of his one time where literally the entire party were thieves. And it was a great game. It was wonderful, right? You knew the backstabbery was coming. You just didn't know when it was going to come, and it was flawless. Do we have someone you would like to be in their game that you have not yet? I'll say this. I will say this, and I will regret saying this out loud. I now treasure Alan Hammock games because Alan loves to do fun games. Like he ran a Boot Hill game at North Texas that was very enjoyable. And I've been in Alan's games enough now that Alan hits all the right notes of he knows what he's brought. He's thought about the scenario and how to balance it out. The Boot Hill game I was in, everybody had objectives. You and a partner were running, I think it was 4 guys, and every group had different goals. And he's not so bound up in the rules that he's like being a stickler, but he is he's knowledgeable, but it's at a normal, it's like one of the best con game experiences you can have. So if you're watching this and you're going to a con, Alan Hammock announced today that he's not going to be going to, he's cutting back on conventions that he's going to. We talked about this before the show. He's not going to larger shows because he and a number of the older TSR luminaries, big shows, big illness rates.
Yeah, big germs. He will be. I talked to him today. He confirmed he will be back in North Texas next year as a special guest. He said he will not ever miss North Texas, which we appreciate. We love Alan. He's also going to be at EggCon next year. We talked about EggCon, and I think I'm going to attend that. We'll probably talk about that later in the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of those. Look, if you get a chance to, some guys, okay, Alan's been around a long time, but look, Alan hasn't been running games for 40 years. Alan quit TSR and did a real job for 20, 30 years. So he's not burnt out yet on doing this
yeah,
stuff.
like he doesn't hate you.
No,
he doesn't hate you, right?
No, not at all. No, he's still having a great time playing games that, for the last
that's
years
the key. You got to find a GM that doesn't hate you yet. Like, and not you specifically, although some of them do.
Right.
But really and truly, you want to find somebody who just doesn't resent you. He doesn't resent humanity.
I'm laughing because
know a few.
I know who Jim's talking about when he says it.
Whatever. Can I have your autograph?
Oh, kid.
Why?
You couldn't hold that autograph.
Okay, sure. Oh my god.
Well, I'll tell you somebody that I've wanted to play in a game, and maybe I will at LongCon this year. Is I have heard great things about David Beatty, who we had in the show.
Oh,
he did Weird Frontiers. I've heard his Weird Frontiers games are thumbs up.
Très magnifique.
Yes, I would love to run in it. I would love to be in a Dave Beatty Weird Frontiers game because I understand you can pick it up as long as you've seen a spaghetti western or two and a weird horror movie. You have absolutely got the mood of a Weird Frontiers game, and so everybody
he has running a game down cold, and
he's supposedly very, very good at it. And I would really love to be in a Dave Beatty game, and so that's somebody I would like to play with definitely. Eric, who do you have?
Yeah. I'd like to play in a Bad Mike BX game one of these days.
Bring it on, brother. You would love it. You'd have a great time. We have a blast every time I run a game. We have an absolute blast, and I think you'd have a great time. Because I would kill you within 5 minutes. No,
I'm sure.
No.
Yeah, but then you'd have to be nice to Rach. Although she's funny now. She's just like, I'm playing a fighter. Like, why are you playing a fighter? Because it doesn't matter what class I play. I always want to get my ass in there and kill stuff. I'm like, Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The bloodthirsty female ratio seems very high. Haley
Yes.
Skatch is a member of the DCC community, and
Oh dear.
her bloodthirstiness is legendary. Absolutely
Yeah. I
legendary.
mean, I know with Rach, first time she played a magic user after Swords Which We Light, she cast her one sleep spell, and she's like, "Well, what else can I do?" I go, "Whatever you want to do." She goes, "I got daggers. You can throw them." And she threw her daggers. I go, "Now what do I do?" "I don't know. What do you got?" She goes, "I got iron spikes. Can I fight with iron spikes?" I'm like, "Have at it. This is awesome." But the next time, pick a fighter, please.
And I think that's, thinking about this, Goodman is blessed with a community of unbelievable GMs, right? So there's Harley. We talked about Harley. There's Brandon. Or Brendan. There's Brendan LaSalle. There's so many great people associated with that company who are phenomenal GMs. That's one of the reasons DCC exploded, is because you had all these modules that had been played over and over and tested over and over by people who were really great at putting it through its sea trials. And I think that's a disturbing thing to read in the chat. I don't need Naked Twister. Like, nobody wants to play Naked Twister.
Well, you have Michael Curtis. I mean, Doug Kovacs apparently runs a great game. Everybody loves
Yes.
it.
After Hours, Doug Kovacs games are legend.
Yeah, Matt, Eddie and Matt, who are run Long Con, they're special guests in North Texas. I've heard, I think Gary's played their game. They run great DCC games. So yeah, the DCC is very blessed by having some really, really excellent game masters in their stall there.
Phenomenal talent.
Yes,
phenomenal talent.
Yeah, and like we said, Harley Stroh is, and I'm sure, I don't know if Harley Stroh still runs DCC. I'm sure he does.
Harley has stepped back from convention attendance for a bit. I think, he's still on the periphery. He's still there, I think, occasionally, but he's not going to as many as he was for quite a while. But come on, right? I did have a great moment of clarity. I enjoyed a great moment of clarity with my kid this week where we were talking. And one of the things, as a parent, you have to let your kids make those mistakes, right? So he was home over the summer and he went back to go to school in the fall. But he took his desktop, the desktop he plays all the games on. And I had this like, like that's going to shave at least a full point off of his grade GPA, right? Like, But in talking to him, he said, "Oh, I don't have any time with all my classes and ninja school and everything else. I don't have time to play games the way I used to. And I've hardly been on it." And I was just like, thank you, Jesus. And really and truly, people get busy and you can't resent them for being busy for the right reasons where they can't do stuff, because this is just life, right? And if people are out there getting bent because Harley Stroh can't make it to a convention, I'd say look in the mirror and take a look at the people making the comments, right? Because look at Alan, right? Alan Hammock. We love Alan to death. But Alan was like, and I'm walking away for a while. And he did. He had a normal life.
I'm not going to speak for Alan but I did talk to him today. And look, these old guys, they can't keep getting sick all the time. I mean, Steve Winter has had COVID 3 years in a row. Alan has been sick every year at Gary Con. He's gotten sick the last 3 years. I got sick at Gary Con this year. Pretty much
I got sick at Gary Con this year.
And then they all got sick. Then they got sick again at Gen Con. Steve Winter got sick again at Gen Con. And I sent Steve Winter a message. I said, this is why you just need to go to North Texas, because we have 500 people, a giant hotel. It's all spread out. It's in the summer. You're not right. Because I'm worried about these guys, Jim and Eric, because you can't get COVID that many times and not have permanent damage.
I got to spend the week after Gen Con in my basement. Okay, great. I get to be in the basement. Thanks a lot, buddies. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's just
it's just the world we live in now. I mean, I know it just seems to be there weren't as many people getting sick years ago. Maybe I'm just remembering wrong.
No,
I mean, you got con crud. You got con crud. You were a little weird for a week. But look, after Gary Con, I was knocked out for a month. I had Z-Packs that week. poor Steve Getty. I made Getty sick on the ride home by coughing in a closed car for 8 hours. Poor guy. And we both got sick, and I didn't just get over it. And maybe it's my age, or maybe it was the kind of flu I got. I'd never had COVID, but I never had a fever. But I felt poorly for a month. And these old guys, we can't do that to them. They can't. No. As much as you want to see them, and that's also why we all three say the same thing. When you get the chance, see these guys now. See the Alan Hammocks and the Steve Winters and the Zeb Cooks, and all those guys, because, like Jim Ward, you just don't know when your time's going to come. And next thing you know, you can't play any more Jim Ward games because Jim Ward's not there anymore. And so, yes, definitely, look, it's just going to take its toll. And pretty soon, the doctors are probably going to tell these guys, you don't need to be going to conventions with 100, 1,000 people. They're going to tell them that.
But Mike, here's the secret, though. We're not even talking about. We're all getting older. Okay, you, me, Jim, James Carpio. Again, I mean, he was at the con on Saturday, and Monday he had passed. So, and I regret not, interrupting somebody talking to him just to say, James, good to see you.
Absolutely.
So
right,
the conventions are an opportunity to meet the people in your hobby that create stuff or are good energy in a hobby. Let them know if you appreciate the work. Every creator wants to just hear, hey, you do a great job. Thank you. I love playing Hyperborea. I love playing Shadow Dark. My group loves it. You brought us so much joy. You know what? That's better than money in their pocket, because you give them a huge feeling in the heart.
And look, and we know this. We've all three talked to these people. They do love to hear that. They really do. I want to give you, just to let you know, here's the list of people. I made myself a list. Here's who I need to talk to at GameHall-Con.
Wow.
I can't read it because but I mean, that's how many people I'm sitting there going, I need to see all these people, because I can't spend any more conventions just saying, oh, I'll talk to that guy later. I'll see him another time. This is my list here. That's who I'm going to talk to. I'm going to make sure every person on that list I'm going to talk to while I'm there and say, hey man, what's up? How's it going? Would you like to come to North Texas next year? Blah, blah. Because after James passed, like I said, I was like, wow, that's just there goes another one. There goes another one of us who, a lot of people probably said, like you said, Eric, you said, I'll talk to him at TotalCon. I'll see him at TotalCon. It's going to be okay. And I just don't know if I can do that anymore. I'm sitting here thinking, well, I've been, look, we haven't, Jeff Easley hasn't been in North Texas in 2-3 years. And Gary and I are going to do our darn bestest to put the full court press on him at Gamehole this year and say, we need you to come. We need you to come to North Texas again. I mean, because everybody wants to see you. We love having you there. And of course, then I found out I don't think he's going to be at Gamehole. He's not going to Gamehole, it turns out. Or he may come. He may come, for what Alex said. But these are guys I want to talk to and say, look, I want you to come to North Texas, because everybody there, they don't get to all these big Midwestern conventions or Northeastern conventions. And they, if you come to North Texas, they can see you. And I'm not going to say you're not going to get sick there, fingers crossed, but the chances are probably a lot less than if you go to one of these giant gangbangs with 10,000 people or more. You're talking about Gen Con or Dragon Con or one of those San Diego Comic Con or whatever. So yeah, definitely say hi to your heroes. I know from talking to them, they love to hear it. They really enjoy it, unless they're just like the guy that Jim was imitating. I don't care. Whatever. Yeah, that's a great kid. I know I'm a genius. Unless they're doing that.
Gary says he told me he will come in 2025.
I know, but I really want him to come. I know
he wants it guaranteed. He wants it in writing.
Now, Steve Jackson is going to be a Gamehole. If we see him, we'll talk to him. But he's always turned us down. I don't know why. And look, Doug was the nicest person. Doug Ray was the nicest person ever asking people. He could get people. I mean, he cold called. For God's sake, the man cold called Errol Otis, traditionally one of the hardest gets in gaming, and he cold called Errol Otis and got him to come to our con. So I mean, Doug could get anybody to come to the con. He couldn't get Steve Jackson. He called him every year. Steve, would you like to come? It's right up the street from Austin. I just don't think I can make it, Doug. And just every year, and at a certain point, we just get to where, okay, are we wasting our time at this point? Because I don't know if Steve really wants to come because we've asked for a year. But like I said, if Doug couldn't get you to come, for God's sake, he got Margaret Weiss. And Tracy Hickman to come to a convention, which that year they came probably had 400 people. They don't. Let me just give you a backstory. They don't go to conventions with 400 people. They have a rider in their contract that says that they must stay in a 4-star hotel. I'm serious. They must stay in a 4-star hotel and be paid appearance fees or whatever. They waived that for us. They waived it. They said, that's okay. We'll come. Larry Elmore's going to be there. We're there. If it's good enough for Larry Elmore, we're going to be there. I'm just telling you, if they don't come to our con, they either don't like us or don't like Texas. I mean, it could be anything. But we may try to ask Steve again. I had lunch with Steve Jackson and Bill Webb a few years ago, which was actually one of the high points of my gaming life. I had a blast listening to them both talk. And I asked him after the convention, I said, we'd love to have you in North Texas some year. Oh, yeah, but I'm just such a busy man. I'm working. I go, you're at GaryCon. I mean, obviously, you can make time for GaryCon, but I don't know.
But he's only been once. He's only ever been once.
One time to GaryCon. But he's going to be at Game Hole. He'll be at Game Hole this year. Supposedly, Mark Miller will be there. Now, Mark Miller is somebody we asked last year. Mark Miller he's very notorious for not showing up. I can
park on his driveway and talk to him. So, if you need me to set up a lawn chair in his yard.
Mark will go to smaller conventions. I've met him at a smaller convention than ours. He will go to smaller conventions. He absolutely wanted to come to North Texas, but I think his health issues get in the way because he's got not come to Game Hole 2 or 3 times. Where he was scheduled to come to Game Hole, didn't come.
So I think we should. Well, I'll share this offline later. We'll talk about it offline later.
Yep.
All right.
So, well, we're at the witching hour. Actually, we're over 2 hours.
Oh my God, over 2 hours,
and without a guest. Oh my God.
Oh no! What a surprise! The three of us can talk a lot.
That's what Rachel said.
I want to throw something out there just to let the people know for future guests. I have been talking to Kurt Gould, and I want to get him on the show. He just retired 25 years at WotC. I bet he has some great stories that he couldn't tell when he worked for WotC. I told him we'd love to have him on the show. It may be 3. We may be talking to him for 4 hours. We may be here at midnight if we get Kurt Gould on. So I'm gonna try to Kurt Gould. We're gonna work on him before the end of the year. Try to get him on. I sent a message to Kelsey Dion today because we haven't had her on in over a year. I said we'd love to have you back on the show. Let us know. So I'm reaching out, Eric. I'm doing reach out. I'm doing.
All right. Well, people that we spoke to at North Texas, the SummerCon season has wrapped up. I may reach out to James Raggy. We speak usually throughout the week anyway, via PMs. But I'll mention we want him back on the show. So.
Oh, James is great. Yeah, he's
and
no filter.
We'll see a bunch of people at Game Hole. We can talk to people.
Yep.
Yeah, Jim and I'll be at Game Hole, and like I said, I got my list here, and I'll talk to some of the people and say, "Hey, we'd love to have you on the show." And see, the whole thing is now that we have Jim on the show, we classed it up. So it's not just like, oh, you and Eric. Oh,
my
Eric
God.
And Jim. Oh, Jim Kitchen is there too. Well,
you drop my name, they won't come on.
No, that absolutely is a that's a plus. That's a thumbs up. When it's just Eric and I, they're just like, oh, Eric and you, but Jim Kitchen. Oh, and Jim Kitchen.
I don't know. There's some people who go, oh, Bad Mike, sure. Oh, wait, 10 car. I don't know.
Think that happens.
I might have to tap out on that. Oh, I can name a few. Mike
Badalone. Is he the guy that wears the horns and the
the cross-dresser?
I'm not gonna really.
He cross-dresses the devil once a year.
I'm going to be busy every Wednesday night for the next 3 years, so that's a no-go. Yeah.
I can't do it. That's the day I clean my cat. Sorry, can't make it.
Every Wednesday I clean my cat.
Every Wednesday I have that old washing machine, the hand one. Put her in.
Oh,
she doesn't like it, but It's better than being on your
Well,
show.
and also, Mr. Jeff Grubb, I'm coming for you. I'm going to put the full court press on that man. He came to North Texas years ago.
Yes.
He has not come since. I've asked him every year, and what do? I see him at Game Hole. I see him at GaryCon. I see him at conventions that are so small they're in a person's living room practically. He is. I'm going to get him back to North Texas.
Mike, you got to remind him of my Jeff Grubb story.
I did at GaryCon, and he remembered it. He remembered it.
Who's going to? So I don't know if Jim knows this, but North Texas is like probably my second North Texas, and I'm with Rach, and I'm going to the elevator to go upstairs, and to get to the elevator, it was around the corner, so you didn't get to actually walk up the elevator and see if it was recently occupied. So I come around the corner, hit the button, not realizing that Jeff Grubb and Zeb Cook had just gotten in. The doors had just closed, and I just reopened it. And I'm looking, and Jeff Grubb was one of my few heroes from my old TSR days, who I really appreciated all of his work. And I'm looking, and I'm going, Jeff, and Jeff just goes, "Oh, hey, 10 car, I read your blog," and then the doors closed because I never moved. And
He's paralyzed.
And like, what the hell just happened?
Wow.
Like, Jeff knows who I am. She goes, "Jeff who? Grubb." And he knows who you are. You're wearing a name tag. I'm like, that's my Jeff.
Well, I asked him about that. I said, I need a picture of you from my buddy Eric Tingers. Oh, Eric, that was the guy in the elevator. I was like, you remember the story? We tell that story on the show all the time. He goes, yeah, I remember that. That was hilarious. And so, yes, we're going to come. Gary and I are going to come gunning for Jeff Grubb because once again, he doesn't come to our con, but he went to GaryCon this year. He went to Game Hole Con this year. And like I said, he was at 2 or 3 conventions I've never even heard of. They're so tiny. So I don't, he's just going to have to make it back to Texas because he's a wonderful guest. Yes. Great stories. His stories are incredible. So we're going to work on a few of these guys. So maybe we get Jeff on the show. I'd be love to have him on Talking Crit. Awesome. He's a great guy to talk to. He's got tons of stories. Great guy. So.
Well, Mike, Jim, thank you so much. Everybody in the live chat. And by the way, this is the Restream interface. So we actually got through it without any
I liked it. Yeah. I enjoyed it.
My dropping had nothing to do with Restream. It had everything to do with my internet connection. So I did a mic.
I'm just happy to see somebody else. Look, this is my 3rd week in a row. Knock on wood, cross fingers.
Yes,
that I haven't had any issues. I may be because I moved right next to the router now. I'm because I was all the way across the house upstairs. Maybe that solved the problem. Maybe broadcasting right next to the router.
You look marvelous and sound marvelous now, Mike.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much.
So, folks, I'm probably gonna have a live tomorrow night at 8:00 from 8 to 9 with Don Zamora and Tom Veralt. No idea what we're gonna be talking about. Glenn Hallstrom. Should be, I think it's Glenn this.
Oh.
Yeah, first Friday. Glenn Hallstrom on Friday, Rach and I on Saturday, all at 8:00 Eastern Time. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll this dice, roll them well. I will catch you